workshop. My name's Ellie. I'm the CEO of Chronically Awesome. We're a little brand new charity that's trying our best to improve the lives of people with chronic illness. We are pretty much all of the team, myself included, are chronic illness warriors. I prefer warriors to sufferers. So very much built on our lived experiences. So we've started off mostly with kind of exercise and movement, and we're just branching out into looking at these workshops and kind of these 2-hour deep dives into different topics. Last weekend was sleep, which was a really fantastic workshop. I know Charlotte, I think, was with us for that one. Learned a lot about sleep and certainly opened my eyes, or should I say closed my eyes, to to some of my sleep habits. And we've had some great feedback from that. We've got some great ones coming up. Our next one will be pacing with Natasha Lippman and her pacing guru, occupational therapy, Joe. We've got a whole range: breathing, journaling. We've got a creative therapy one coming up, all sorts. So do check those out. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Izzy, who's very kindly joining us today, to run us through kind of getting back into the world post shielding, post lockdown, kind of readjusting. I know I went to the supermarket for the first time in, I think, more than a year the other day, but I went at 9 o'clock on a Friday night. So I'm not sure it counts because no one was there. But it felt like a really big step just to get in the car by myself, which I hadn't done in a long time, and go to the supermarket by myself. And we went to a pub, and that was quite strange, just to be surrounded by people again. It's a big thing. And yeah, so Izzy, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks very much, Ellie, and welcome to everybody to today's workshop. A little bit of background about me. Ellie kindly put my profile up, and I do a couple of things. I've been involved in the world of yoga since I was in my teens, and back in the day, yoga was very much about strength, athleticism, very advanced poses, probably pushing yourself far too hard. And over the years that I've been teaching, which is probably, well, over 40 maybe, my attitude to yoga has changed to one of really being able to put yourself in touch with the inner self. And I'll say a bit more about that as we go through. The other side of my profession, if you like, that interests me is coaching. I spend a lot of time, about 30 years or so, in the world of IT, and that's all about change. And the bit that over time began to interest me far more than software and programming and all of those kinds of things was the impact it had on people and supporting people to be different, to adopt new ways of working, of coping, of using the systems. So that led me to train a few years ago as a coach. So those two elements come surprisingly neatly together these days as both physical preparation for life and mental preparation for life as well. And we will touch on both of those in today's session. So as always, there is a plan. I always have a plan, and I'll just tell you kind of how the plan's going to be so that you can pace yourself in terms of the bits that are of most interest to you. And if you need to go and take a break, you'll know which bits that are good to do, because we'll be sticking, I hope, fairly closely to the timetable. So the core activity for this morning, once I've done a little bit of introduction, is an exercise to help you feel that you can do all the things Ellie just talked about, plan an excursion of some kind, work out afterwards what went well and what you might have done differently, and then go through a process of actually refining what you did so that when you go to repeat it, maybe it works even a little better, you have a different attitude, you have different things. So it's very much about planning, acting, reflecting on what you did, and then nurturing yourself ready to go round the loop again. It's not a technique that I've actually expressed in those terms before, but it's something that I use myself a great deal. And it actually, preparing for this workshop made me think, yeah, that's actually how I do these things. So that's going to be the body of the session. We'll take a break. So the break will be probably around about 11:20. So we'll have a break, just a comfort break, and pop and get a drink. So that's a formal break. And then after that, I want to give you some actual physical techniques, ways to release tension, ways to change your breathing, and ways to gain mental focus. So we'll do some chair-based yoga, and it will all be based on a chair so that you can be exactly where you are. If you're sitting on a bed, a lot of it will work that way too. And then I know Ellie wanted to make some time for questions at the end. So around about 12 o'clock-ish, maybe a little bit after that, we'll move into any questions, general discussion. But I think that the main thing I would say is, in terms of communication, it's a small group. And I think, if you do have things that you would like to observe, comment on, or ask as we go through, I think it will work quite all right to do that, rather than it just being a one-way street. So I'd really like to get some engagement, particularly in the sort of the core exercise that we're going to do. And just before we do that, I think really what the context for this, it's always useful to kind of set a context for why we're doing this, is that as a community, I know that you have, you talk a lot, you support each other a lot. And as Ellie was outlining earlier, this feeling of coming out of a life where we have been more separate into one where we are engaging with other people brings with it a certain element of apprehension. Yesterday, I agreed to meet some friends down in Felixstowe for a walk along the prom. Now, I was suddenly aware at, I think it was about 5:30, that the place was really suddenly altering and filling up. And there were these massive queues outside the fish and chip shops. There were far more people all milling around. And those are the situations where you need to have a little bit of a plan for how you are going to be if you find yourself in a position that's uncomfortable. So I would like to go into this kind of main exercise that I've got. I've done a little graphic, and just to help us visualize what on earth's going on. So just before I do that, are there any questions from anybody, Charlotte or Kay, who are on the call? Just anything you would like to ask or clarify? Okay, I'm going to show you. No, you're all right. I'm going to show you a picture. I don't like screen shares, because when you do screen share, you actually can't, you can't see anybody. So I'm going to show you a little graphic. Ellie pointed out to me that it's actually still got the Canva on it, and I'm not too worried about that, because I think Canva is absolutely great. It's a fantastic resource for producing graphics. I'm not a terribly graphic-y person, but this really appealed to me. What's it all about? It's about this little process, really, of planning what you're going to do. So the idea is that through this process, you can feel enlivened, energized. You can bloom in whatever way blooming looks for you. So you go through your process, which we'll actually work through as part of the core session, of planning the thing you want to do. It might have been going to the supermarket like Ellie did. It might be something a class you've agreed to go to. It may be going back into your workplace. So the first part of it is actually thinking through what you're going to do. The second part is about actually doing it. Now, in the workshop, you're not going to suddenly be popping out to the supermarket or whatever, but you can actually walk through what that would look like, and we can have some discussion about that and prompt each other for what the experience could look like, what it would be like in the real world. The process then involves, right, well, I did that. And just like Ellie said earlier, then there's the moment to reflect. Well, how did it go? What did I feel? What did it make me feel? What could I have done differently? What could I have done better? Could I have done more? What was the process like? And I think the really important bit about the next step is this nurturing, because whatever it was is what it was. And if you felt you coped really well, then that's okay. If you felt you coped less than well, that is also okay, because it's a repeating process. And the most important bit about here, this nurturing, is what you take away from what you did and how you then use that information next time you go round. So you build confidence and don't find yourself sort of pulling confidence back again. The most important thing we can be in the world that we're looking into is confident. And then finally, all this process will lead you to a place where I would love you to feel that you have bloomed in, as I say, whatever way blooming looks for you. And around that, there's all these petals. And as part of this nurturing process, I think it's important to look at the other things in your world that make you feel confident, that make you feel comfortable, that make you feel good in life. And I'd like us to spend a little bit of time also as the exercise progresses, just seeing if there's one or two things you can write down which help you to feel that you're how well you are doing. So that's the little model. I'll probably give it to, well, Lily's got a copy anyway, she can send around to you perhaps afterwards, so you've got the little reminder thing. But hopefully some of it will get really into your mind now as we do the first part of the exercise. So if you've got something you can jot down on, it might be your iPhone, it might be a bit of paper. You might be like my mother when I spoke to her and she said, I've got everything planned out. And I said, well, have you done it on the computer? And she said, no. She said, I've done it on the back of a macaroni packet. So whatever it is, have something with you and take a minute to visualize something that you would like to do, something that you need to do, something that may be on the horizon for you. Whether it's going out to meet a friend for a walk or a coffee, whether it's making that trip back into the workplace, whether it's, as Ellie outlined, going to the supermarket because you think I really probably need to do this. So identify something that for you feels like, oh, hello, Rian. Is it Rian? Rianne, perhaps. Excellent. Welcome to the workshop today. And we're just into a little exercise where we are looking at something that we might see as a challenge, something that we might see as perhaps something that's a bit, it's a bit difficult. It's making us think about how it's going to go. So a situation like maybe going back to work, a journey. And when you've got your example, start to think in your mind about how that might go for you in terms of the journey, things that might be useful, things that you can prepare for. So could you put yourself at the start of it in a nice calm mindset? Do you have a way of doing that? Or for you, is it actually about raising your energy slightly so you feel that you're ready to engage? Thinking about what you might need to take with you. I actually think from my own experience and people coming to me for coaching and for yoga, the kind of what stuff you need is actually quite difficult and probably one of the things that is well worth thinking about. I had a lady come back to me the other day for one-to-one yoga session, and she arrived, I think it's about 10 minutes late. She said, I'm so sorry I've arrived late. I realised I hadn't got my yoga mat, so I had to turn around and go back home and get it. And so things like that, where those are the things, if you like, we can control. We can actually think about all the different things. Variable weather. Do I take an extra coat? I don't want to share mugs at work. Can I take my own drink with me? Details. Now, we don't want to get obsessively bogged down in it, but one of the ways that we can think about these things is to actually do a sort of a walk through. So think, okay, I'll do this first, then I'll go here, then I'll pick up that, then I'm likely going to have to do so and so, and just gently step through it. I'll give you a minute just to think about that. Do, as I say, do feel free to ask me some questions, and to check in with me that that you've got the gist of what I'm on about. It's always lovely to get a little bit of feedback. I've jotted down here, I think actually one of the things I put on my prep notes is when you're in a situation with other people, all of a sudden there is that opportunity to communicate and to chat, to exchange ideas. And actually it may be that there are not that many things that you might be able to think of on the spot to talk about. So in any social situation, whatever it may be, it's always useful to just have a couple of ideas about things that if there's that awkward moment, you've got a couple of topics you've prepared earlier, if you like, just things that you can make small talk about. The word small talk fills some people with terror. And it's actually a learned art. I don't think there are too many people who are just kind of good at it all the time. So if in doubt, just have a couple of things up your sleeve that are sort of little conversation openers. When I was in the world of IT, it was very male dominated. So I learned just enough about football to be able to have one or two little things I could say, and that was enough to make me, part of their little pre-meeting conversation, and then I could think, good, did that bit. And you've got your event, you've got your thing, you've got your ideas about what you might take. You may have some small talk up your sleeve. And it's worth just exploring and almost sort of placing yourself there. So one of the things I've observed, and it may be that you've all been out a little bit, I don't know whether you've actually ventured out into the world very much yet or not, but that can be what it feels like. And these unexpected situations where you suddenly think, now I'm in, it did actually happen yesterday, now I'm in a queue for something, and I'm not actually sure that I want to be in this queue with these people. I know there's something I want, I've either picked it up already and I'm going to have to pay for it or whatever. What's your back out plan? If there is rising anxiety, and we all experience it, different ways, different times, and I defy anybody to say they've never felt anxious. We all experience it. And one of the things that is really valuable is to have a back out plan, which just means if this happens, this is some language I'm going to use. Would you mind if I just put these goods down because I'm afraid I do need to go now? Whatever the language that you're comfortable with, something that gives you an opportunity to move away from the situation that kind of may not be making you feel quite comfortable. So in your little plan there, and I'm not saying you'll get the whole plan today, but there might be some prompts around language you could use, back out plans. Anything else that you think should be in there? Do you have any comments, Kay or Charlotte? I hope you're hearing this. I haven't heard from you at all. It doesn't matter if I hear from you at all, but it's nice to know that you're picking something up.
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Lovely to hear your voice.
I've put myself on mute while you're talking so you don't hear any background noise. I've got the tumble dryer on, that's why.
Well, that's very organised of you. Well done. I think it's a great idea to keep yourself on mute, actually. But yeah, it's lovely just to hear your voice. And how are you doing with the exercise? Is it making sense to you?
Yeah, I'll put the camera on so you can see what I look like, so you know I'm a real person.
Oh, I can tell you're a real person. You're all...
Yeah, I like it. It's pretty good. Like, yeah, I do like relaxation, and I'm quite into like meditation and spirituality anyway. So it sort of ticks my boxes, really.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, planning, I just think planning is key. As I say, you don't want to get sort of too heavy about it, but just to have looked ahead, anticipated things, because if you've looked ahead, you won't anticipate everything. But actually, if you can cover off just a few of them, then you'll feel more confident when you get out there. Have you been out and about much, Charlotte, or have you?
I actually have been working because I used to be a nurse, and then obviously I got sick. So last year I lost my job.
Oh.
But I've been working for a disabled charity in Scarborough. But in September, I have actually got a place, and I'm going to be starting a PGC teaching in September. So I've got that to look forward to. But yes, I have been out and about. I have noticed that now everything's back up, and there's certain individuals that are just spoiling the atmosphere, and it just makes it a bit unnerving. And it's just, that's how it just gives our town a bad name. And yeah,
so
when it just put you off sometimes. I don't like crowded shops and stuff. I sort of plan my time when I want to go shopping, really. And I tend to quite go to the independent stores because I quite like the unique shopping experience than going to like the big mainstream ones. But yeah, like I have been to like Debenhams, but I've gone when I've gone after work when I know it's quiet. I haven't gone in when people are queuing up at 10 o'clock in the morning, because to me that's too much.
That is a perfect example of the planning aspect. You know what you're comfortable with, you know what you are not comfortable with, and your plan, which I think is brilliant, is to say, well, I'll make sure I'm going at a time when I know those things I'm not comfortable with are not going to be such a high level of anxiety for me. And that's brilliant planning, isn't it? Because you come away from the situation feeling that you have achieved what you wanted, instead of finding you suddenly got in the middle of something that was deeply uncomfortable and you didn't like it. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well along the route already.
Yeah. I just think at the moment with my course, I'm in limbo. So I'm trying to put stuff in place for September, but it's because I'm in between. It's a bit frustrating, and it's because it's like, oh, it's not the academic year. It's like, oh, I just want to get things in place first.
Yeah, you want to get going. No,
it's like because I had to apply for the disabled student allowance, and that is quite time consuming, and that's quite. I'm not looking forward to the assessment. I think that's going to be quite stress me out, actually. But I know it's to help me.
So your assessment could be your thing that you're looking to plan. That's an example of something that's a little unusual, something that maybe you haven't got an experience in the bag on that one, to actually have as your kind of, for this exercise, for the purposes of this exercise, what are the things that I can tell are going to make me anxious? What are my plans for managing that and coping with that? What are my plans for preparing? And what is my language for if I find that something is uncomfortable and I need to make space? How am I going to do that in a controlled and assertive fashion, instead of just saying, really sorry, I can't cope with this, which I'm sure you wouldn't do. But, when we're under pressure, we do stuff we don't expect to do. That's the thing. We just react from the gut, and it's sometimes not what we think. But the purpose of this little exercise, which I'm sure you've done it already, you've indicated you have, is that you have this stuff at the ready. So you think, I thought this might happen. Execute plan B. That's how I'm going to cope with this. And it puts you very much in the driving seat. Anyway,
I'm always an over planner.
Well, then rein that in a little bit and plan just enough to manage your anxious points, and then don't do any more. Otherwise, you'll go down the wormhole of planning. You'll never come out, Charlotte. How are you doing, Kay? Are you all right with some topic that you can kind of work around a little bit? Okay, still on mute. She doesn't want to talk to me. Maybe she'll pop in a minute. How about you, Ellie? Have you got something you've got in your mind that...
Yeah, so I've been finding that I'm particularly nervous about going out because at the moment I'm sick a lot, and the doctors don't really know why, and so I'm anxious about leaving the house. I'm lucky that like I don't get like a lot of cramps or pain or anything, so it's not like when you get a bug and you feel really grim around it, but nonetheless I can be sick several times a day, and it makes me anxious that I'm going to go out and cause a scene, and so it's been about kind of planning, if I go out and it hits me, because it can come on really quickly, how can I manage it? How can I carry things with me without it being like a washing up bowl under my arm the whole time? So I kind of done a bit of, like buying kind of odds and ends that I can fit in a bag, kind of little sick bags and things that are a little bit more discreet, but also just kind of continually challenging myself, because it would be really easy at this point to stay at home, because we do have a really good support system. Having shielded, people would be really understanding about wanting to stay at home and would continue to support us doing that. So it's kind of, my biggest challenge is just continuing to go out, and like we went out for lunch because I know that's something my husband's really missed while we were shielding. He's a real foodie, and so I know it was really important for him to be able to go out and have a really lovely lunch, and I could just nibble on some chips, and if I needed to be ill, I could do that and get past it. It would be fine, and it didn't need to be a really big part of the day if it happened. So yeah, like my biggest thing has been kind of not so much the back out plan, but recognizing that it's going to happen at some point and not allowing it to take over and become like the defining feature of the day. Because I know like it's going to happen so often, I can't always back out of the situation. Like otherwise I'm going to be reversing all over the place.
I think that sums it up absolutely brilliantly, doesn't it? Having a way of coping with what you know is likely to happen in a way that just, as you say, doesn't dominate the day. And it would be very easy for us, wouldn't it, when things are not quite right and we don't feel confident, to, as you say, keep in a holding pattern, stay back, don't do anything, don't rock the boat, don't put yourself in an awkward situation. One of the things that I find a lot with people, and actually in fairness with myself, is that when you stretch yourself that little bit and go into the I can do this, I have got a plan, I know how I'm going to cope with these things, then this almost takes us rather neatly onto the second part of things. I can therefore visualize how this is going to play out. So this is almost part two. If we go back to our lovely little flower, we've done the planning, so we've thought about this. We're watching out for Charlotte, who's a bit in over planning mode. She's not going to do quite as much of that, maybe. And then we're into act. So in the real world, you go out, you'd execute the plan. So for the purpose of the workshop, you might like to sort of step through what you feel it's going to be, visualize yourself. And I hadn't realized how much I use this myself. Visualization, just a couple of words on visualization, is immensely powerful. It's actually been found that in the world of yoga, if you visualize doing a particular pose, so some of the things you're learning in your workshops and in your regular yoga classes, if you actually are sufficiently tired or just demotivated or struggling, having a really awful day, if you just sat or lay down and visualized those poses, because you're operating on the neural pathways, the effects of the posture are there. I think it's more than 50% of the benefit is there. because the body says, oh yeah, I remember how to do this. But the neural pathways are promoting the effects that the posture would have had if you had actually physically done it. So that, in a little microcosm of yoga, works incredibly well. You've got that sense of promoting well-being in the body, even without physical movement. So if we then project that into this world that you're going to go into, you being out and about with challenges, Kay and whatever she's got in her plan, Charlotte may be looking at the assessment situation. If you can now visualize in that situation, either walking into a room, going into a restaurant, finding your way there, having that sense of anxiety, and actually sort of almost role play how that's going to be. And I'll give you just a few minutes to do that, so you can actually think, oh yes, I know how this begins. So, you know, I know that at a certain point, I get this particular feeling. When I get this particular feeling, what am I actually going to do about it? Do I have a technique that I've learned, a breathing technique, a mental focus technique, or do I actually need to physically move away, pop to the nearest loo, get some distance, have a comment that I can make that I know will, you know, fill a space if somebody's like in an assessment waiting for an answer. You know, what have I actually got in my plan that I can use? So just spend a couple of minutes visualizing this challenge, this thing you've got ahead of you, and maybe just working through what it would look like, how it will feel. As I say, in the real world, you'd go out and you'd do it. But I think if I sent you all out to supermarkets and assessments now, you probably wouldn't be back for the rest of the morning. So just a couple of minutes on that one. Yes, I just put on my little notes to prompt you. Anticipate any areas that may need smoothing out. So if you know, you both talked about things that for you can be like kind of pinch points, just gently thinking, yeah, if that thing happens, what have I got in my back pocket to help me? So when you've done your walk through, say in the real world, you go out and you do it. So if you can again think of something that you've done, Ellie, you went to the supermarket the other day, Charlotte, you've been out and about. And just reflecting back, it's worth considering how you felt. So we're up now to this little part here on the tree where we are reflecting. So we've done the plan, we've done the getting out and doing it, and now we're sort of reflecting. So for this one, it's probably quite useful if there is something you have done, something you've been out and engaged on recently, and you can actually reflect back on that and think of those things that happened. How do I feel I managed? How did it go? Is there anything I could have done differently? Think of you and your supermarket, Ellie, actually, and the thing actually, as Charlotte has said as well, is that you can actually choose the time you go. That's you in control. And I've done the same myself. I can't think last time I went to a supermarket during the day. If I need to go, I wait till sort of 7 or 8 o'clock at night and go over then. And it's incredibly easy, very straightforward. So what went well? How did you feel? I think that's kind of an interesting one. How did you actually feel when you were going through the process? Because I think when you are in tune with yourself, there's that sense of, you know, what feelings arose in you. How did you manage those? Were there any feelings of discomfort or any feelings of awkwardness? What did you do about that? So just thinking that through, and if you want to make any observations, That's fine as well. Sometimes it's a matter of some skills that you may not feel you fully had. So it's worth asking yourself, when there was this interaction with people and it made me feel like this, you know, what would I have liked to have been able to say? It's the being wise after the event bit. When you've been through a process, what have I taken from it? What could I have done a little bit differently? Any comments, any observations? Do you want to say anything, Charlotte?
So yeah, I think with me sometimes, this week I've gone back to Creative Crafts, which is like a local independent. It's a bit like a quirky shop. It's like it sells essential oils, it sells stones, it sells alternative things. And I think for me, I think it's the first time I've been back since they've opened up. So I was a bit like, wow, you're open again. And I just wanted to touch everything and sniff everything. But yeah. I think now I need to go back, and I thought I haven't got the stuff I actually went in for. So this time, like I'll go this afternoon and I'll be constructive with myself and be like, you come to get some essential oils and that's all you're going in for. And I'm going to get some lavender seeds because I make my own massage oils. And I said, that's what my plan is today. And I'm not going to get distracted from all the other stuff. Because it is quite easy just to like tear yourself away from it all. It is, and it's all colourful, and because it's like a unique shop. I'm like, oh, what's this? And it's just, I need to be a bit more proactive and plan what I want.
I think that's a useful observation. I think the other aspect of it, though, is that going in, you've actually made me reflect by your comments there. Going in just to enjoy the place, that can be all right too.
Oh, so yeah.
That can be an objective. I mean, when we are very planning focused and when we do look very much for outcomes, and I get a sense you're a little like that, we can actually sometimes beat ourselves up for not having got the outcome we expected to get from the thing we did. And I think that's quite an interesting position to be in, because actually you may have had a whole different outcome. It may have been, and it sounds like it was, really good for your own well-being.
And it's quite nice just to chat to the shop owners, because when I've ordered stuff online, they just delivered it to my house and then we haven't had the contact, where this time it's quite nice to have a chat with them and say, hey, how are you? And have a catch up with them, because it is such a little, it's been there, it was there when I was a child, so it's been there for a very long time, and it's a very unique store, and most people think it's like a stuff to go and buy art stuff, and it's like, no, it ain't, it's just but they don't want to change the name because it's been there for so long, it will confuse people.
Where are you based, Charlotte? Where are you speaking from?
Scarborough.
There's one on my list to go to Scarborough. There was a similar shop in Leeds, and I think we used to have one around in Suffolk somewhere. I can't remember where it was. And just as soon as you go in, the smell and the sense,
it's fantastic.
So I think sometimes to come out without having met the objectives you went in for, but to have actually achieved something that maybe you didn't even think you needed, is quite an interesting thing to have done, and it clocks as a huge success as well. Just that sense of nurturing yourself and doing something that doesn't particularly have a very specific objective is good as well. Yeah, brilliant. How about you, Ellie? Observations?
I need to set more time aside. It took me absolutely ages. Like, my husband ended up calling me to check I was all right, because in a year Tesco's had rearranged everything and I didn't know where anything was. and with like trying to stay a certain distance away from people, there's a lot of kind of standing around waiting for people to make a selection before you could move anywhere. And then I was in the wrong place, so I didn't need to have stood there anyway. And yeah, so I need to allocate myself more time when I'm, even if it's going somewhere that I've been to lots of times before, like assume that things have changed, and that it's going to be like a little bit unfamiliar, and that it's going to take a bit more time to navigate it again. We ended up eating quite late.
Well, actually, it is really interesting. So how do we take pressure off ourselves? We can call it planning, but actually it feels like a recce visit. Okay, I'm not actually going shopping. I'm just going to have a little look round and see what it is. If on my travels I happen to see one or two things that I know I need, bonus time. But actually, this is just a recce so that I'm being super efficient for next time when I may actually need to get 20 things, and I'll kind of have a better view of where they are, which I think is exactly what you're saying, isn't it? Take the pressure off, and yeah, do a bit of Charlotte's technique. Go and smell the lovely essential oils in Tesco and see the beautiful. Oh, of course there aren't any. Wouldn't that be good if supermarkets actually did put things that made you want to be there? This is a bit off piste actually, but I don't know about you, but when I've been into supermarkets, they are so processy, warehousey, uninteresting rows of stuff that the inspiration quota measure is actually really low. You don't come out feeling inspired. You come out thinking, yeah, I got stuff. Just my observation. So we are getting towards, I think I said, let me look at my plan. Yep, we're getting towards the end of this this little exercise. So I just want to spend a few minutes. What we've been doing, in a sense, in this last bit, as we've fed back, is the nurturing bit on the flowers. So we've looked at the plan, we've looked at the going through it, we've reflected on things. But actually what we sort of edged into here is how, having done these things, how do we actually nurture ourselves? We tell ourselves that we've done a good job. We tell ourselves that maybe there's an opportunity to do things slightly differently. I'll just glance down and see if I've made any other little notes here. I've put, don't be hard on yourself, be kind. So that's the feedback, you know, we were doing. Don't worry that you didn't get all the groceries. Don't worry that you actually didn't get the oils you went in for. You've actually had an experience that has built your confidence and nurtured you and made you feel good. Navigating the new normal is going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. It already is. And so this is the moment when you do plan in a few extra things. You think, you know, I could do this slightly differently. We talked about having a recce visit. Enjoy what you did and actually nurture yourself. Take out all the good bits and hold on to them so that you feel confident for moving on and having another go and doing it differently the next time. So just we'll have coffee very slightly late, or actually you can do it while you're having a drink if you want to go and do that, because what I thought we would do, all these things are intended to lead you up to feeling that you have bloomed, you have done something really lovely. So let's take a break, and then when we come back from the break or during it, maybe there's some other things that you thought about that you could put on there as things that you need, things that you feel nurture you and support you. So going actually just smelling essential oils, having someone with you at the end of a phone who you can phone and say, I have no idea where the pasta is in this place, you know, and that's the thing we're out of. So let's take a little break. Do feel free to, you know, pop to the loo, sit for a minute. I will be here online if you want me, but just take a few minutes to organise yourself and come back in about 10 minutes. So about, I don't know, just after 11:30. Is that all right for everybody? Okay, see you soon. Welcome back. Hello. I don't know if we've got Charlotte back again. And also I noticed...
I'm here.
Oh, jolly good. And I'm trying to think, there was somebody else who was here and she said she'd need to go. Kay. Kay has disappeared to do what she needed to do. So just to draw the loose ends of that little exercise together, I'm going to leave a little bit less time for the questions because there's fewer of us, and we'll just spend a little bit more time on rounding off this exercise before we go into our chair yoga. And it's that moment when we are looking to, as I say, recognize what else we may need around us based on our learning from our planning, our acting, our reflections, and our nurturing. What is it that we recognize and that we actually need in our lives? And I was going to, have you come across this book? Yeah, I thought so. It's the Charlie Makes It. He actually lives in Suffolk. I think he lives at Walberswick, if I'm not mistaken. And this book, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, was something I bought right at the beginning. I think it was right at the beginning of lockdown. And sometimes I just look for things from it. I did read it once all the way through, but I just opened pages randomly. And I think just to help us with this nurturing thing, there's a little quote here. And he says, "Isn't it odd? We can only see our outsides, but nearly everything happens on the inside." So we can only see our outsides, but nearly everything happens on the insides. And there's this rather nice little illustration and the one over here of the boy. So in terms of you feeling nurtured and supported on the inside, is there anything that you want to add around on the petals of your sunflower? Just jotting down a few ideas of things that you know in your life you need from others. They might be skills that you want to develop. They might be techniques that you want to add into your portfolio. They might be other people who you know that when they are around you, you feel more comfortable. It might be the skill of knowing that the other people can't always be with you. So you need to find something inside yourself that gives you that sense of quiet confidence. Confidence is an interesting word. It can actually be something which others see as not so good. Somebody can appear to be overconfident, but actually we do need to feel sure of ourselves, sure of who we are, sure of that inner part of us. And that's the thing that we're looking to nurture. So if there's anything you want to add that you would write around the top of these petals, that would be just a little reminder perhaps for yourself.
Don't be hard on yourself and stop judging yourself against other people. And that's a good quality to have. Yeah.
I think that's really nice. I like the judging bit. Judging it's a big word at the moment, isn't it? People often talk about judging, don't they?
Yeah, there's lots of people started to be a bit more judgmental, and and it's like, leave people alone. Everybody's different. Everybody's got their own quirks, and if they're not hurting you or harming you, just leave them alone. That's everybody's different, and everybody has their own traits, and it's beautiful and individual for them. So stop having a go at people.
I quite like having a go at people.
I don't, but you know, it's just,
like it.
It's just that I think I've come off social media, and people are like, why are you not on Facebook or Instagram? I was like, because I got sick of all the negativity. And I just thinking, I was comparing myself to other people, and you're just thinking, why am I doing that? You know, I'm unique to myself, and I know I've got my own health problems. So, you know, do things which are right for me. Stop comparing myself to other people.
Do you think that's something that a lot of people do, compare themselves to others?
Yes, I can see it in my friends, and they're like, oh, I'm a failure because I'm not doing this. And you're like, well, do you have to do this? Well, no, actually. But why are you comparing yourself to other people? You know, it doesn't matter.
I think that's a really interesting issue, and I think it probably eats at people more than they realize, that sense of comparison, relative success, failure, whatever words people pin on these things. And yeah, so in terms of that, how do you do that, Charlotte? How do you not make it, I think the words were, it doesn't matter. How do you, for yourself, feel sure that it doesn't matter? How do you do that for yourself?
Well, in a sense that I just, you know, I'm happy within myself, and yeah, and I do like, at the moment, like my tummy does look, because I've got problems with my tummy. Sometimes I do look pregnant, and, you know, I've had people like, oh, when's your baby due? And I find that quite harsh. So like, I try and dress nice, but try and disguise my tummy in a sense that nobody's going to say, oh, you're fat, you're, you know, pregnant. You know, I try and disguise it, but I just think people are just harsh and they're just horrible, and, you know, and it's just not nice. But I think also since like I started working at my charity I work for, you know, I started doing stuff on, you know, the committee and start being involved in that, you know, so obviously it's quite nice talking to other people in similar situations to myself. And taking myself off social media was like a big thing as well, taking myself off that. And try and do things for myself, and things, be kind to myself, and stop judging myself against other people.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting way of framing things in such a way that you protect yourself from the influence of others. It is all about influence, isn't it?
Oh yeah, there is. It's just, I think it doesn't help. We've got a celebrity culture, and I don't read magazines anymore because they say, oh, you've got to be a certain weight, you've got to look like this person, and I'm looking at myself as like, I don't even look like them. You know, we just need proper people to promote things than having, you know, people who just they're not in the real world. They don't live in the same world as me. And yeah, we need people who actually promote things, who actually live in the same life as myself.
Yes. Interesting, isn't it? Very
it is.
Observation. Thanks for sharing that. That's very insightful.
Thank you.
Anything you want to say, Ellie, about that sense of, you know, what you need and what you would like to add to your flower?
I need to I know that my body has a routine. I know that come 11 o'clock, my body's like, okay, it's time to go back to bed for a couple of hours now. And if I try to push through it, it starts screaming at me. And I know if I try, you know, if I'm out and about, like I'll start staggering around, I like start to slur my words and my vision goes funny. Like it's a proper kind of like a real tough thing to like try and function with, because my body's telling me it's 11 o'clock, you've been up a couple of hours now, you should go back to bed. And yet I still,
now, yeah,
today being an example, schedule things for this time in the day, because I'm like, cool, I've been up a couple of hours, my meds will have kicked in, this is a good time, and now I'm struggling. Like, why didn't I just schedule something for the afternoon when I know I will have had my nap and I'll be up and I'll be fully functional? Like, I didn't listen to my body, and now I'm not fully blooming for for this workshop. So, you know, I need to remember what my body tells me day in, day out, and remember those routines and that structure, because I just make those things harder for myself. And you know, so if I'm out and about and then I experience this, that was a totally avoidable stress. When I'm out, and there's enough unavoidable stresses that I could be facing, I don't need to add more in. So I definitely need to kind of be more careful about structuring my days, and like remembering that for now my body says this, that and the other, and therefore I need to structure my days in a particular way. I'm rubbish at doing that. So that's definitely something I need to add in.
Okay, that's really insightful as well. That's both of you are showing something that, with my experience of particularly yoga, but it's in all sorts of aspects of our life, knowing yourself, knowing what is right for you. Because if you know that, as you say, you can work around things. So you've given me the perfect segue to take us into our little yoga session. What I'm going to suggest, Ellie, is if you are feeling weary and you have a place that you can actually lie down, listen to my voice, join in with the bits you want to, and maybe visualize in the way we were talking about earlier. So if you can get yourself so you can see me, you can actually visualize, if you're tired, what I am doing. And it would be very interesting for you to observe if it has an effect on your body, a positive one. I hope it has a positive one. That would be great. Charlotte, if you're happy to join with me in the chair yoga. It's all based around the chair. It's a little bit of adjustment to posture, so I've got that in the plan. It's a gentle sideways stretch. Some of it may involve raising the knee toward the chest if you feel comfortable with that. You're seeing me on video, aren't you, Charlotte? So you can see what I'm up to. So
yeah, I can see you.
That's the most important thing. I'm just going to move my chair back so you can see more of me. I'll pop the screen down, and I'll add some extra lighting as well, so I'm picked out a bit better. Obviously, normally for yoga, I would be wearing yoga clothes, but I'm very specifically not doing that today, because this is the kind of yoga that you should be able to do. Let's just get the screen angled slightly better than that. There we are. This is the kind of yoga movements that I think it would be great if you could factor in if you're studying, if you're working from home, and you can just sort of think to yourself, oh, there are a couple of things I could do now which will make me feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more relaxed. The essence of any kind of yoga work, yoga practice, is that we look at aligning the body. There are all sorts of reasons for that, which if you've ever studied yoga, you'll know about. It's about the subtle energy of the body. It's about the chakras. What we do when we sit, when we look at posture, is we try and sit slightly forward on the chair. Now, if that's very difficult for you because you've got pain and discomfort, then by all means sit back and feel the support of the chair, or Ellie, it may be the floor for you. So sitting slightly forward if that's possible, and what we would like to be able to do is to seat the pelvis so it's nice and level. In the spine, we should have a gentle S-shaped curve. Now, if you're lying down, you'll actually want the spine seated against the floor. But if you're sitting, you should be able to construct that gentle S-shaped curve and keep the body beautifully tall. if we can achieve that, and not everybody can, particularly from a sitting position, then we automatically are starting to align the body well. So either sitting a little bit forward or use support if you need it. And what we're going to do is just rest the hands on the knees. We're going to feel the shoulders are lovely and level. And we're going to bring about a sense of quietness with the body. For that, we're going to reflect on the breath. And we're simply going to notice that before we start trying any different techniques, we're just going to have a sense of how the breath feels. Where is your breath going? The lungs, if you spread them out, would cover the surface of a tennis court. There's that much of them, all neatly packaged and folded up, protected by the rib cage. The rib cage is almost like the engine room of the body. It's got all the important stuff in it that helps us to stay alive. So when we breathe, we are in a sense energizing and stimulating the very engine room of the body. Be aware that as you breathe in, there may be a slight rise in the abdominal area. You've got sort of a domed muscle in the chest around here, which is the diaphragm, and when it presses down, it actually squeezes a little bit into this area. So I hope, Charlotte, if this is, I hope it's not uncomfortable for you. Feel as you breathe in that the ribs also expand. So be very gentle with yourself if you're not used to this kind of breathing, that the ribs expand slightly to the front, slightly to the side, and you may even notice it slightly into the back of the body, but be gentle with yourself, don't overdo it. And then sometimes when we breathe in, and it may be that when you feel anxious, but you can even feel breath more up here in the body, around about the pectoral muscles. So sometimes when we become concerned, the body feels it needs to get more oxygen in. And you may get this sense of going on right up into the top here. So there's an enormous variety in the places and the way in which we can breathe. In our practice today, we'd like to make that feel beautifully level, beautifully quiet. So I'd like you to think about breathing in gently to the abdomen, the ribs, and the upper chest. Breathing out, upper chest, ribs, abdomen. And this isn't pumping yourself up like a balloon, super full of air. It's just exploring a gentle sense of the breath. Just feel a few little breaths like that. It's a moment to reflect on those of you who are with me in the session today, and those of you who may be afterwards tackling and practicing this by yourself. The breathing does affect the blood pressure, so if you know you've got issues with high blood pressure, generally in yoga we don't hold the breath if you have high blood pressure. We won't be doing that today anyway. And all of the movements we'll be doing, because they're seated and upright, are safe for most people, except perhaps the twist at the end. And I would recommend, if you have back problems, pregnancy, any difficulty with internal organs, recent surgery, that you avoid overstretching or twisting in the body. But this is a very gentle session today. I'd like us to go into a sideways bend. So let the breath settle back to a very light, easy rhythm. Sideways bend on the chair. Really, really important that the buttocks are well seated on the chair and stay that way. So I'm not going to be rocking over to the side. Two choices for you. One is to have the hands just gently on the top of the hips. If you feel you'd like a greater stretch, you can then, as you breathe in, bring your right arm gently out to the side and up, Gentle breath in, don't feel you're going full to bursting. Gentle breath out, both sides of your bottom on the chair. Lean to your left, so you're leaning away from the arm. Go very carefully, try not to lean forward. And be really aware as you now softly, gently breathe. A little sense of stretching, opening into the side of the body. Keep the bottom firmly on the chair. Breathing in as you straighten. Breathe out as you bring the arm down and tuck the hand back on the hip. Settle the breath. You may find that if you're not used to these kinds of things, the breath is the hardest thing to manage and control. Next breath in, the left arm is going to make its little stretch up. If you've got sore shoulders and you don't want to take the arm up, that's fine. Keep the hand on the hip. Breath out gently to your right. Again, feel both buttocks firmly on the chair. Don't go too far or you might come sideways off your chair. Keep the chest lifted if you can. If you've got difficulty with curvature in the back, work as best you can. Don't go too far. Feel what it's like. Gentle breathing. Breath in as you straighten. Breath out as you lower the hand. Putting the hand back at the top of the hips. So this actually, for those of you who are lying down, translates quite nicely, because you can do this physically lying down. Or if you're feeling tired today, you can visualize the movement and actually be with us in the practice, feeling the stretch in the ribs. If you're happy to go once again each way, we'll do that now. If you'd like to rest quietly, this is your moment. Breathe in, the right arm coming gently up. Lovely stretch through. When you're ready to breathe out, softly to your left, bottom firmly down. Head can move a little bit as well, that's fine. Breathe softly and lightly. Don't overbreathe. Feel the flow of the breath. Notice what's happening here when you breathe in. Breathe in and straighten up. Breathe out and lower the arm, tucking the hand on top of the hip. Left arm, breath in as the arm comes up. Breath out, move gently to the side. Lovely, steady, light breath. Breathe in and straighten. Breathe out and lower the arm. Release the hands onto the knees. Feel the softness of the breath. I'm going to go into a forward bend now. This is based on a posture in yoga which is very much about strengthening the back. And what I'd like you to think about is whether you can move from the hips forward. One of our real passions in yoga is this idea of keeping openness and space in the front and the back of the body. So see if you can be a little bit up on the hips if you can. Very similar movement, breath in and take the arms up. If that's not comfortable, keep them gently down. This is a small movement now. As you breathe out, see if you can hinge slightly forward. Feel the back is strong and straight, not particularly arched, but not flat. Breathe gently and hold. This, funnily enough, is called chair pose. Breathe in and straighten. Breathe out and lower. Once again, breath in, floating the arms up. Feel the strength through your back. Feel the muscles engaging. Breathe out as you come forward, hinging from the hips. If it's too strong on the back, drop the hands down, use them to support at the knees. You might find that's more comfortable. Breath in as you straighten. Breath out as you lower. Settle the breath, hands are on the knees. Part of mobilizing the body, and of all the things that we do in yoga, accessing this sort of pelvic area, freeing it up, is one of the key ingredients to helping us with posture. So shoulders are the obvious area, and we've done a little bit of work on those in these postures. But the other part that's really important is this pelvic mobility, this slight tipping. So if you're lying on the ground or if you're sitting, even just this idea, and I hope you can see it well enough here, is just this sense of ability to rock the pelvis. Now, of course, I make it look very easy because annoyingly, I've been doing this for quite some time. But that, if you can nurture just that little tip in the pelvis, it actually starts to change your relationship with this area of the body and improve your posture. We're going to introduce some movement into the legs now. And again, I want you to be very observant about how this feels for you. So I'm going to suggest grasping just underneath the knee and lifting a little bit. Now, if you find that is hard, then you can use a strap under the leg instead. You can just draw the knee gently up on the breath out, as if you were kind of drawing the knee up towards the chest. I hope you can see here with my leg coming up. It doesn't have to come up very far, but you will feel a stretch in the low back. So for those of you with difficulty getting space in your low back, this is good for you. Breath out as you lower. Opposite leg, grasping around the back. Breath out as you bring the leg up. Doesn't need to come far. It's just about keeping the hips level. Next breath in, lower. So finding a little rhythm with the legs, the lift. It's called knee to chest, but in the chair position, actually it's a lot harder than it is lying down. And down. Opposite leg up. Feel how the pelvis tries to stay level, and you may get just a small movement. And down. Hands back on the knees. And let's just sit for a minute and let the breath settle. Two more little movements, and if you take these away and practice them yourself, you'll find some of them work really well for you and feel good, and some of them are more challenging. So the next one is a forward bend. Very much like chair pose, but we'll keep the arms down. We'll take a breath in, lengthen through the body. And as we breathe out, this time we are using the hands to gently support us. So we can ease forward. The weight is on the feet, so make sure your feet are well grounded, no slipping about. And this is a pose where it's really nice to just hold the stretch. You will feel, particularly those of you with low back issues, a little bit of a stretch here. And the other part about it is to keep the shoulders really soft. And you'll see when you look at me from sideways on, I'm trying to keep my head very much in line. Next breath in as you straighten. And again, slide the hands forward, breath out, forward stretch. Feel the shoulders are gently opening back a little bit. Typically, in daily activity, our shoulders are forward. We'd like them to be back. Breath in as you straighten. Sitting quietly. Observe your breath. And I hope you're beginning through the session now to find a sense of quietness. I've talked about the center of the body here being the place where everything happens. It's the engine room of the body. In terms of the subtle energy of the body, it's also the place where we have the center chakras. This is to do with fire. And it is actually quite an energizing area. So I hope some of you may experience the benefit of that when we go into this posture, which is a spinal twist. So lovely straight back, really important when you are twisting to get the spine as upright as you can. We're going to take the left hand and place it on the opposite knee. So left hand is on the right knee, so you can see it's crossed over the body a bit. Breathe in, bring your right arm gently up to shoulder height. And when you're ready, as you breathe out, let that arm move around. You might be able to drop it onto the side of the chair, towards the back of the chair, anywhere that feels right for you. And very softly, feel yourself twisting around to the right. Don't overdo it. This is not an opportunity to sort of use the hands to pull everything around. Find the subtleness in the movement. Find the gentleness of the breath. Breathing in as you bring the arm up and round to the front. Lower the arm. We'll change the position, so bring the right hand over, across the body, rested on the top of the leg. Breathe in, bring the left arm up. Breathe out, very gently go around. Don't expect it to feel the same. Not as even as we might imagine. You may go very well one way and less well the other. Rest your hand on the side of the chair or towards the back. Gently begin, keeping both buttocks firmly down. This twist to the left. Explore the movement. There's no target here about how far you should go. Breath in as you bring the left arm up and round to the front. Breathe out as you lower. Rest the hands on your knees. These twists are generally put at the end of a yoga posture practice because, as well as energizing here, they have the effect of calming your inclination to feel tension and anxiety. They're very powerful at stimulating the system in such a way it sort of tunes you out of that stressy response. So they're very, very powerful poses. So for the last part of this mini sort of yoga session today, we're going to be focusing on the breath and then on relaxation. So a choice for you about whether you sit comfortably back in your chair, the back very nicely supported if you want to, or whether if you want to lie down, this is a good opportunity to do it. And two things, a little bit of attention on the breath and then a guided short relaxation based around the breath. So when you're comfortable, be focused on your breath. Feel the way your breath is. I would like to think that after the little practice we've done, the breath is calm, and I'd like to think that you feel calm and focused and connected with yourself. So very gentle, light breath. Notice the rhythm it has already now by itself. So we're going to do 2 or 3 of the breaths we started with. The yoga full breath. As we breathe in, we're breathing from the abdominal area, then into the ribs, then into the upper chest. As we breathe out, we're coming from the upper chest, the ribs, the abdomen. Don't overdo it. Be gentle with yourself and maybe visualize filling a glass with water as you breathe in and emptying the water from the top down as you breathe out. You've done your 3 breaths. You may feel a little rise in the energy level in your body. Sometimes in our daily life, we want to feel more energized. Sometimes we want to be able to calm things down. So if you need to raise your energy a little bit, those kind of deeper breaths can be very helpful. If, on the other hand, you want to achieve a calming effect, you can change the breath rhythm. Breathe in for a count of 2 and out for a count of 4. And how long you make the 2 and the 4, you will start to work out what is right for you. We'll just bring the attention to the breath now. We're breathing through the nose, as we always do in yoga. 1 or 2 things where you expel air forcibly through the mouth, but we're not going to do those sorts of things today. So gentle breath in through the nose for a count of 2. Breath out through the nose for a count of 4. Finding your rhythm, in for 2, out for 4. In for 2, out for 4. Bring your attention fully to your breath. Trying to keep your body nice and long, whether you're lying or sitting. Spine well supported either by the chair or by the floor. We want space in the spine, which gives us space in the lungs. 2 in, 4 out. Now allow your breath to settle back into its own rhythm. So when you next are ready for a breath in, just let your natural rhythm of breathing take over. And for the last few minutes of our yoga practice together today, we're simply going to keep that sense of awareness of the breath. Now, for any reason that makes you feel uncomfortable or it's not something that you find relaxing, feel free to visualize something else, perhaps your favorite flower or something that helps your mind stay steady. The key to relaxation is that we find comfort in the body, lightness in the breath, stillness in the mind. So all the techniques we use in yoga are about bringing all of that together so we feel that unity, if you like, between those elements. So the way we're going to keep the mind steady and try and discourage it from running about is to focus on the breath for those of you who are comfortable with that. Be very interested in your breath. Notice where it is naturally flowing. Maybe more in the abdomen, maybe more in the ribs. You may feel it more in the upper chest. Get to know your breath. Have a sense of comfort with the breath, as if you are happy to hand over breathing and to feel just really quiet. You almost imagine that you are slightly sitting back and observing yourself. This technique in yoga is it's widely used. It's almost moving towards a meditative state, but actually it's really, really practical in terms of day-to-day activity. Be aware of how you are, be aware of how you're feeling, so that in the day-to-day world you can spot changes to that and start to modify your behavior, change the way you feel, alter your breath, calm your mind. Quite naturally, after a while, the mind will tend to try and move away. It will try and run away and think of other things. Notice that that has happened and just be kind. Gather the thoughts, push them gently aside. Bring your awareness back to your breath. We're going to start to prepare for movement and activity now. And the way we do this is to quite deliberately change again the rhythm of the breath and deepen it. So as you deepen your breath, again, not a huge amount of breath, but just picking up the breath a little, feel that little change that says, okay, we're coming back to preparing for movement. Send your awareness out through your body into the hands and fingers and gently move them. Into the toes and feet and gently move them. Into the arms and shoulders and gently move them. Into the legs and the hips and gently move them. Turning your head a little bit from side to side, especially if you are lying down, so you know where you are, what is around you. So if you are going to start to move, you're not going to bump into things. If you've had your eyes closed, opening them now, having a look around, be comfortable with where you are. feel that you are alert. And then when you're ready, if you'd like to come back to your screens, we'll do the last little part of today's workshop where we'll start to respond to any questions that have come in from members of the Chronically Awesome community and anything that may occur to you now. It'd be great to have a little discussion before we draw the workshop to a close. So when you're ready, just gently finding your way back to your screen. And perhaps if you can also just let me know that you're okay, that would be lovely.
I'm okay.
Great, Charlotte. Lovely. How do you feel? Do you feel relaxed? That's the question.
I do, and then my knee, because I got a dodgy knee, it did pop. But then I thought, oh, actually I feel better now it's popped.
It can have all sorts of effects, these little yoga movements that we do. So, Ellie, how are you? Are you feeling a little bit recovered?
I confess I woke myself up snoring at one point.
Hey!
It's allowed. It's okay. So just for the last bit of the workshop, I know there may be some questions from those of you who are participating today. There may be some that Ellie has had in advance of the workshop. So your opportunity to ask me things.
I had one from someone asking kind of when they're out and about, is there a good breathing technique for when they're kind of feeling a bit panicked? They said they had a I guess a propensity to breathe too fast, but then they, in an effort to control it, they then would tend to go the other way and then would breathe too slow, and both made them feel horrible. Was there like a good count, or what's the best kind of way of breathing that's going to kind of help calm them and without going so slow that you end up just holding your breath and then feeling horrible as well?
That's an incredibly good question, and whoever you ask, there's always somebody who's got the perfect rhythm for breathing is such and such. So it's very much about finding your own. But one of the pointers I would like to give is that breath we just practiced together, and I'll just remind you of how it went, because when I was training with the Yoga Sports Science Institute, it was very much an organisation geared towards helping particularly athletes. Now, athletes, as much as anybody else on the planet, become anxious and they find that stuff is too much. They've got to go out, they've got to go and deliver, they've got the gold medal that they need to nail, otherwise whatever. So when they need to zero in and focus and keep calm and targeted and look professional, the breath that we were taught is the one I did with you, the 2 in and the 4 out. Typically when we become anxious, and I know it myself, and I'm sure you guys do as well, the breath bounces up here and it's this kind of, and you always tell what's going on because people's shoulders are up and down, and it's just a horrible, unrhythmic, panicking feeling. So the best thing you can do is to try and lengthen the breath out, because as your person who was asking the question was saying, you're basically over breathing and over oxygenating. We have a ghastly sense sometimes that we need to bring in more oxygen and more air. But actually, sometimes we need to get rid of some of the carbon dioxide that's built up. The breathing system is a very finely tuned balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide. So we're not actually flushing out every scrap of carbon dioxide out before we take in oxygen. We're trying to find a balance. So by practicing that 2 in, 4 out, and finding for you as an individual how that feels and how it looks, rather than saying it must be 1 second, it must be 2 seconds, it must be this. taking control is the key bit. So breathing in for 2 through the nose, out for 4 through the nose, and actually practicing it in a safe place, practicing it when you don't need it, so that when you do need it, you think, oh yeah, that breath, and you can just bring it in instead of thinking, oh my God, was it 2 seconds? Was it 4? Was it in? Was it out? What was it? It's too late then. Practice it occasionally, sit for a minute in between work assignments, have it ready in your back pocket and think, well, let's just try this. So breathe in for 2, breathe out for 4. It's the ratios that's important, not the length and the space. I hope that helps. Anything else? Any other things I can help with? Have you got anything, Charlotte, that's buzzing around in your mind? Hopefully nothing's buzzing around in your mind. You should feel beautifully calm.
Sometimes I just feel like I get frustrated with doctors. You know, I just find they're quite judgmental and they just make assumptions. Right. So sometimes I come across sometimes as being rude, even though I'm not, but they don't like it when I question them. Mm-hmm. And I just find sometimes I get, that's when people judge you.
So it is really interesting. There's a whole thing, and Ellie and I before the workshop were having a little chat about things like sort of language and relationships and so on. I've had 1 or 2 problems with my eyes during my lifetime, and I can remember when I was a kid, you went to see these doctors and they had these long white coats, they had these desks, literally like desks, really tall, and they looked down on you. The whole you were small and they were big and powerful. And I think, unfortunately, it's taking an incredibly long time for that heritage of the profession to be normalized into something that can be more like a conversation.
It's like they don't look like, they don't put all my health problems together. It's sort of like they're in their own little world, like, I'm cardiac, I'm gastro, they don't put the 2 together, and it's just frustrating at times that, they don't look at you as a whole person. They don't look at that at all. I know when I was doing my nurse training like 14 years ago, they mentioned holistic care, but that seems to have gone by the wayside now. But yeah, I think sometimes we have to look at the person, and each person presents differently. Each disease process is presented in each person differently. So why are we just have the one answer? Nobody really explores beyond their speciality.
Yeah, I think it is just the way, as an organisation, the health service seems to work. And I think one of the things that people have come to me with is this sense that the only person who really seems to understand them is them. And I think this, ourselves, we are, I think, the expressions, we are the expert on ourselves. We've had our body, I've had my body for over 60 years. I think I know it kind of reasonably well. But it is difficult there is an art to getting out of the health service that which you need. It's a whole art form. Some people seem to manage it. Some people manage it, but it's painful and it's awkward. And some people don't manage it. And there are those people who don't seem to get a good result from the service. So the only thing I would say from a coaching point of view, and I'm going to be really specific about it, if you have a sense that you feel you are coming across as rude, then there may be ways in which you can use very slightly different language. I always think of these doctors and things, they're only people like us. They're actually, they're people like us. So it's something about somehow building a relationship with them that lets them see who you are. And then with a bit of luck, you can see who they are. And then you've got something in common. But I think so much of the legacy of the health situation is one of, I am the expert, you are the supplicant, I will tell you what to do, you will do it, and that's it. And I think that whole relationship building is the thing we can try to control. You know, it's something very simple.
It is
like
so hard. I think what is more difficult is like we're not having face-to-face appointments. It's all telephone, and some people are better at speaking on the phone than others, and it's so hard. I don't know about you guys, but getting a GP face-to-face appointment is like, it's so hard in my area. It's basically you would just get a telephone call first, and that's all you get.
I think, in fairness, it is still possible to try and build a relationship with someone. I mean, one of the most weird things that you can do is just say to the doctor, "How are you today?" And that sometimes so shocks them because nobody ever thinks to ask them. It's one of the tactics I've used. If I go and they say, "Hello, what seems to be the problem?" I say, "Oh, hello, how are you?" But I'm just totally nonplussed. It's like, why are you asking me why I am, or who I am, and how I'm feeling? So we have got the ability to try to change the dynamic, but it's a whole skill set, and I think it's worth treating that as a separate subject. Yeah. Anything else? We're due to wrap up in about 4 minutes. Sorry, Charlotte. I hope that's kind of given you a little bit of
fine.
Half answered your question. I don't feel I'm the best person to give you the full answer. So last few minutes, because I know you're probably running out of steam a wee bit and would like to have a rest.
I had another question that was sent in. Someone asked, how do you know when you're kind of just feeling a bit nervous and anxious about kind of going out and about? How do you know when it's just that, and how compared to kind of when you should go and get some, see your GP or talk to your GP? Where's that boundary? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, because I think one of the biggest challenges with being anxious is you actually feel really ill. It makes you feel ill. If you've got a full-on anxiety issue, I'm sure you're all well aware of the sort of the process of the fight, flight, stay, as they call it these days, reaction, where beyond your thinking process, your sympathetic nervous system has said, "My God, we're in trouble here. We need action stations." And action stations involve sweating, it involves rushing to the loo, it can involve vomiting, it would involve a racing heart rate. And strangely enough, they're all things that don't make you feel great. You actually feel ill. So what I would say is develop techniques for getting, I don't like to use the language getting a grip, but finding a way of controlling that for yourself. Recognize it and stare it in the face and say, yeah, you sound like you're a stress reaction. And that's how I'm going to treat you. I'm going to treat you as a stress reaction. I'm going to use my calming down techniques. And people get it, apparently, I only learned this recently, even actors going on stage, the most experienced actors, I have heard tales of buckets in the wings so they can go and throw up and then go back on the stage and do the next bit, because they're that wound up, that anxious, that stressed by the whole experience. So they actually have something ready for them to just throw up in and then get back on the stage. So, these kinds of reactions are almost things that come upon us. They completely bypass the thought process, and they're suddenly there hitting you in the guts and making you feel shocking. So if you have a technique that you can develop that calms you down, and you try that and you begin to feel better, you've got a reasonable indication that actually what you're experiencing is stress. If the techniques that you have been cultivating and generally work do not work on that occasion, there's a fairly good sense that actually something more is happening. That would be to use your word, my boundary. Yeah. Know yourself. It's this not exactly facing your fears, but I know exactly how I would feel if I were in a really stressful situation. I know precisely how it feels. And I sing when I can, I haven't done it for a year, in a choir. And actually every time before we're due to go on stage and sing in a concert, I know exactly how I'm going to feel. And when I first did it, I was shaking so much, the music was flapping around, I couldn't breathe or anything. But now I know what's coming, and I think, yeah, at some point this is going to show up. And I think, yeah, here it comes. Okay. I hope that helps. Brilliant. Well, we're bang on time. If there's nothing else, perhaps we should draw today to a close. It's been an absolute delight. Thank you for inviting me to be with you with Chronically Awesome. It's been a really lovely morning for me. I hope those of you who've been with me have enjoyed it, and those of you who subsequently watch and listen online will get out of it what you need. Thank you very much.